Hello students, welcome to the chapter Sorting Materials into Group. In this chapter, we are dividing things based on their similarities and dissimilarities. So we are dividing things into groups so it makes us easy for us to study them. For example, if I have things like salt and sugar and I know they both dissolve in water, then they have a similar property. And so does sand and chalk, right? So based on these similarities and dissimilarities, we are grouping things into separate groups in this chapter. Now let's move on to this third and interesting property of solubility. Solubility means that if anything is added to a liquid, then does it disappear in it or not? So things which are soluble will disappear when mixed in a liquid, whereas things which are insoluble will not disappear. Now let me show you by example. You see, this is a glass of water. Here I have some salt with me. I put it in the water and I stir it for a little while, and you see that the salt is gone. It has disappeared within the spaces of the water and we do not see salt anymore. The same can be said about sugar. Let's take this sugar and I put it in water and then I stir it. What do you see after some time? That the sugar has disappeared in water and it is not to be seen anymore. So when things disappear in water and they are not to be seen anymore, then that is called as a soluble substance. So sugar and salt are both soluble. Now let's take the same water and do another experiment. Here we have some pebbles with us. So these pebbles are not soluble in water. If I put them in water, they settle at the bottom like you can see here. Same can be said for some dirt. So if I take some sand and I put it in water, what happens? It does not get dissolved in water, rather it settles at the bottom. So if you leave it for some time, it will settle at the bottom as you can see here, right? So this shows that there are two types of substances. One which disappear in water when mixed, they are called as soluble substances. Two, substances which do not disappear and settle in water, they are called as insoluble substances. Example for that can be sand and chalk. Example for soluble substances are salt and sugar. Now since we have water involved and we have salt and sugar, let's get to some words that we normally use to describe these things. So the base in which you are dissolving things, like in this case our base is water. The water here is called the solvent. Solvent is the liquid in which you are trying to dissolve something. The thing that gets dissolved, be it salt, sugar or even sand, the thing that you are trying to dissolve, the solid substance, that is called as solute. So solute is the solid substance that you are trying to dissolve in a liquid, whereas solvent is the liquid in which you are trying to dissolve a substance. When something gets mixed in water, for example, we have a mixture of salt and water, then together that thing is called as a solution, right? So solution consists of a solute which gets dissolved in water. Anything which gets dissolved occupies spaces in water and we are not able to see it anymore. So it gets mixed in the water, like you see in case of salt and sugar. You cannot see salt and sugar particles anymore. But sometimes there are other things which settle at the bottom. These things do not get mixed in the water but settle separately, like sand and chalk. So these are insoluble. Okay. So now that you have understood how in liquid we can have solutes which are either soluble or insoluble, let's understand a common thing about water. The water is the most common solvent. Why is that? Because in water almost all things dissolve. All the things which can dissolve end up dissolving in water, and that is why water is called as the universal solvent. In water, everything gets dissolved. which not everything, but things which tend to get dissolved usually also get dissolved in water, whereas other things like vinegar or juice or oil, in them only a few things get dissolved, whereas in water many things get dissolved. Now let's talk about some liquids mixing in liquids. So based on this property, we'll be able to see what kind of liquids get mixed in a liquid and what do not. So when a liquid gets mixed in a liquid, then it is called as miscible liquid. Whereas on the other hand, if a liquid does not get mixed in another liquid, then it is called as immiscible liquids. So let me show you by example here. Here we have the liquid of water, and I have a lemon lime with me, so I am going to put some lemon juice in it. I put the lemon juice, I stir it, and you cannot see the lemon juice anymore. It means that the two juices have mixed together, the two liquids have mixed together. Now you cannot see lemon juice or water separately. So this is an example of immiscible liquids. One example shown here is water in vinegar, water with lemon juice, and glycerin with vinegar. So in the last case, we do not have water as the solvent. There are also places in which, for example, dissolving lemon juice in vinegar is also a miscible liquid, but it does not include water as the solvent. So these are some examples of miscible liquids. It is when a liquid gets dissolved in another liquid and disappears completely. Now let's talk about immiscible liquids. So immiscible liquid would be when in a liquid, another liquid does not dissolve, rather settles either at the top or at the bottom. For example, I have some water here and this is some oil. If I add the oil in water, what do you see? The oil has come at the top. You can see the oil has formed a layer around here, and it is not to be seen anywhere in the liquid. It is only present at the top. Interesting, right? You can try this at your home and see for yourself. So this activity shows us that some liquids like cooking oil or kerosene oil or petrol do not dissolve in water, rather they form a layer at the top. Why do they form this layer? Because they are lighter than water, and that is why they float over it. You will discuss, you will understand more about flotation later in this chapter. But for now we can understand that oil forms a layer at the top and water stays at the bottom. They do not mix. So there is a surface between them, but they're not mixing with each other. Whereas if I added lemon juice, it mixed completely, as you saw. So this is about miscible and immiscible liquids. Now we have an interesting activity to understand miscibility and immiscible liquids better. This activity uses a equipment called as separating funnel. This equipment drawn here is called as a separating funnel, and this is a beaker. So what do we do in this experiment? For example, I have like I told you here, I have some oil and water and I have mixed them by accident. Now I want to separate them. How do I separate them? We use this equipment. To do that, first you take this entire solution in a separating funnel. At the end of the separation funnel, there is a stopcock. So by this stopcock, you can stop it whenever you want. And because the bottom is so thin, it is going down drip by drip. As you see here, it goes by drop. So when you reach here, when you open the stopcock in this activity, you're trying to separate two immiscible liquids. So you pour the solution in the separating funnel. Then you open the stopcock and it goes on dropping drop by drop. And in the end, there will come a time when the oil will have moved down till here. The moment you see that the oil is at the stopcock, you carefully close it. When you close it, you have water separated in the beaker. So you have all the water in the beaker and all the oil settled here. the oil will settle here. By this way, you have separated two immiscible liquids, namely water and oil. So in this activity, we learned that we can separate two immiscible liquids by using a separating funnel. We carefully see the drop by drop motion of the separating funnel and close the stopcock just when the oil is about to get in the mixture. By doing that, we have separated water and oil, right? So that was the purpose of this activity. You can try this in the laboratory of your schools. Now that we have talked about dissolving a solid in water, in liquid, we have talked about dissolving liquid in liquid. Now let's talk about dissolving the third type of things, which are gases. So let's talk about gases in liquid. I'll be talking specifically about water. So gases also get dissolved in water, but you cannot see them because they are such tiny particles. But there is a way for you to understand. The first example, let's talk about your favorite drinks, the Coca-Cola or any cola drink that you prefer, which has aerated drink in it. When you open the bottle, you see there's fizz and there's bubbling happening. Why does that happen? Because in cola aerated drinks, there is carbon dioxide dissolved in water to keep it bubbly, and that is why when you drink it, you feel fizzy. So that is one place where we dissolve gases in water. Another place is something that is not done by man but happens naturally. If you see in any lake or any water body, you know there are fishes in it and there are plants. Now, how do those fishes breathe and how does that plant do photosynthesis? The answer to both is that within water there are gases dissolved. So there are gas particles within water dissolved in it. These are the gases of carbon dioxide and gases of oxygen. The gas of oxygen will help the fishes and all the life in the water breathe, whereas the gas of carbon dioxide will help all the plants carry out the process of photosynthesis. So in this way, we studied that both solid, liquid and gases can get dissolved in liquid solution based on the property of solubility. We can separate them into soluble and insoluble, miscible and immiscible. And we also studied some gases that get dissolved in water. Thank you.